The world held its breath, teetering on the precipice of a nuclear abyss. It was the height of the Cold War, a chilling era where the shadow of the atom loomed large over every nation. Superpowers jostled for dominance, their arsenals growing with terrifying speed. Each new warhead a grim testament to humanity's capacity for both innovation and destruction. In this volatile landscape, a tiny, fledgling nation, born from the ashes of unimaginable horror, watched with a desperate urgency. Israel, still finding its footing, understood that survival in this new world order hinged on a single terrifying truth. Nuclear capability was the ultimate guarantor of sovereignty. Without it, they were vulnerable, a lamb among wolves. Israel's nascent nuclear program, a clandestine endeavor shrouded in absolute secrecy, was a gamble against impossible odds. Its scientists possessed the intellect, the engineers the ingenuity, but one crucial element remained elusive: uranium. This heavy, silvery white metal, the very heart of atomic power, was a commodity more precious than gold, more guarded than state secrets. Every ounce was tracked. Every shipment scrutinized by the vigilant eyes of every major intelligence agency on the planet. To acquire it illicitly was not just difficult, it was considered utterly impossible. Within the hushed, labyrinthine corridors of Mossad, Israel's formidable intelligence agency, a young operative named David carried the weight of history on his shoulders. His eyes, though keen and intelligent, often held a distant sadness, a reflection of the Holocaust's indelible scar on his soul. David was brilliant, a strategist with an almost intuitive understanding of human nature, but beneath the calculated exterior beat the heart of an idealist, fiercely devoted to securing a future for his people, a future free from persecution. He believed, with unwavering conviction, that Israel's very existence depended on its ability to deter any existential threat. Guiding David through the treacherous currents of espionage was Elias, his mentor. Elias was a man forged in the crucible of countless covert operations, his cynicism a well-earned shield against the world's harsh realities. His face, etched with the lines of experience, rarely betrayed emotion, yet his sharp mind and unwavering effectiveness were legendary within the agency. He moved with a quiet authority, a silent conductor in the symphony of shadows, his presence a constant reminder of the high stakes involved in their dangerous profession. Then a whisper. A faint, almost unbelievable rumor began to circulate through the intelligence underworld. Initial reports, fragmented and cryptic, spoke of a massive, unassigned shipment of natural uranium, yellowcake, originating from a European supplier. 200 tons, enough to fuel a nascent nuclear program for years. The news sent a ripple of electric tension through Mossad headquarters. 200 tons floating somewhere in the ether, untraceable, unclaimed. It was a prize almost too tempting to contemplate. But the euphoria was fleeting, quickly replaced by the cold, hard reality of their situation. Every major power, every intelligence agency worth its salt, was acutely aware of the global uranium supply chain. The United States, the Soviet Union, Britain, France. Their surveillance networks were vast, their vigilance absolute. To divert such a monumental shipment, to make it vanish without a trace, would require an act of audacious deception unparalleled in the annals of espionage. The overwhelming odds pressed down on them, a suffocating weight. How could they possibly hope to outwit the combined might of the world's most sophisticated intelligence apparatuses? Yet, amidst the despair, a flicker of an idea began to ignite within the minds of Mossad's leadership. A daring, almost impossible plan, so audacious it bordered on madness, started to take shape. It was a whisper at first, then a murmur, growing into a resolute conviction. The sheer audacity of the concept was breathtaking, a testament to the desperate ingenuity born from necessity. The question hung heavy in the air, unspoken but palpable. Could such an impossible feat truly be conceived, let alone executed, without the entire world taking notice? The stage was set for a gamble that would redefine the future of a nation, a secret so profound it would lie buried for half a century. The audacious whisper soon grew into a roar within the clandestine chambers of Mossad. Internal debates raged. echoing with the clashing ideologies of caution and desperate ambition. Elias, stoic and unwavering, became a quiet advocate for the seemingly impossible, his experience lending gravitas to the outlandish proposal. The sheer magnitude of the uranium shipment, coupled with Israel's existential vulnerability, ultimately tipped the scales. The decision was made. A high-stakes gamble that sent tremors through the agency's core. Operation Plumbat was greenlit. A covert mission of unprecedented scale, it would either secure Israel's future or expose its deepest vulnerabilities to a hostile world. David found himself thrust into the leadership role, a mantle he accepted with a mixture of fervent determination and profound unease. The weight of responsibility settled upon him, a heavy cloak woven from the threads of national survival and the moral ambiguities inherent in espionage. He was tasked with assembling a small elite team, individuals whose skills were as sharp as their loyalty was absolute. Among the first he chose was Rachel, a brilliant communications specialist whose mind worked with the precision of a finely tuned machine. Her ability to weave intricate webs of disinformation and intercept the most guarded transmissions would be indispensable. Then there was Ben, a burly former merchant marine captain whose gruff exterior hid an encyclopedic knowledge of global shipping routes, port operations, and the subtle rhythms of the sea. His practical expertise would prove invaluable in navigating the treacherous waters of their deception. Their target was quickly identified. Société Anonyme des Minerais, a reputable European company contracted to deliver 200 tons of uranium to Sidar, an Italian firm. This seemingly legitimate transaction became the perfect cover, a pre-existing narrative to hijack and twist. The initial phase of Operation Plumbat began with a meticulous, painstaking reconnaissance and infiltration. David's team descended upon Europe, a silent swarm of shadows, gathering every conceivable piece of intelligence on Sam, Sidar, and the established shipping routes between their facilities. They studied manifests, observed personnel, and analyzed communication patterns, building an exhaustive profile of their targets. Every detail, no matter how small, was scrutinized, forming the bedrock of their elaborate deception. As they delved deeper, the complex web of shell corporations and front companies began to take shape, each designed with surgical precision to obscure the uranium's true destination. These paper entities would create layers of plausible deniability, redirecting any prying eyes away from the ultimate recipient. David, haunted by the specter of discovery, pushed his team relentlessly, knowing that a single oversight could unravel their entire operation. During one particularly tense reconnaissance mission, while observing a key SAM executive, David and Ben experienced a harrowing close call. A routine police patrol, seemingly out of nowhere, pulled up beside their parked vehicle. Ben, with remarkable composure, feigned car trouble, his hands expertly tinkering under the hood, while David, heart pounding, maintained an air of casual frustration. The patrol eventually moved on, leaving them shaken but undetected, a stark reminder of the razor-thin margins of error they operated within. Amidst the constant pressure and mounting risks, a glimmer of hope emerged. Rachel, poring over stacks of international maritime regulations, discovered a critical loophole. A seemingly innocuous clause concerning the rerouting of cargo due to unforeseen circumstances or renegotiated contracts offered a legal, albeit obscure, pathway for their deception. This discovery was a revelation, a lifeline extended in a sea of impossible odds. It provided the framework, the legalistic cloak, that could potentially allow the 200 tons of uranium to vanish from the global radar without immediately triggering an international incident. The seeds of deception had been sown, and now, with this newfound understanding, the elaborate architecture of Operation Plumbat could truly begin to take form. The intricate architecture of Operation Plumbat now demanded its physical manifestation. The Mossad's clandestine network sprang into action, meticulously creating a fake shipping firm, complete with a plausible corporate history, forged registration documents, and a seemingly legitimate chain of command. With this elaborate facade established, the next crucial step was the acquisition of a vessel. They found her in the bustling ports of northern Europe, the Schiersberg A, an unassuming cargo ship, ripe for repurposing. Her unremarkable appearance was her greatest asset, allowing her to blend seamlessly into the endless procession of merchant vessels traversing global shipping lanes. The transformation was swift and thorough. Under the guise of a routine dry dock maintenance and rebranding, the Shearsburg A was subtly altered. Her true ownership was buried beneath layers of corporate shell companies, each pointing to another, creating an impenetrable maze for any casual inquiry. The meticulous planning of the diversion extended to every detail, from the precise wording of the forged manifests to the establishment of a credible, yet entirely fabricated cover story for the ship's supposed voyage. She was destined, officially, for an Italian port, carrying a consignment of phosphate, a common and unremarkable cargo that would raise no eyebrows. The moment of truth arrived in the pre-dawn chill of an Antwerp dock. Under the cloak of darkness and the watchful eyes of unsuspecting port authorities, the 200 tons of uranium, disguised in ordinary-looking drums, were loaded onto the Shearsburg A. Each drum, heavy with its strategic payload, represented a piece of Israel's future. David, observing from a shadowed warehouse window, felt the immense weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The years of strained relationships, the sleepless nights spent wrestling with moral ambiguities, the constant fear for his team's lives and the very survival of his nation, all culminated in this silent, clandestine transfer. He understood the profound personal sacrifices required, the very soul-crushing burden of carrying such a monumental secret. As the last drum was secured, the Shearsburg A slowly pulled away from the dock, her engines rumbling softly, her initial course appearing entirely legitimate. She sailed south, a ghost ship carrying a ghost cargo, heading towards her supposed Italian destination, a phantom in the vast maritime tapestry. For a fleeting moment, a sense of cautious triumph washed over David, quickly replaced by the gnawing anxiety of the journey ahead. Yet even as the Shearsburg A steamed purposefully into the shipping lanes, the first faint whispers of an anomaly began to ripple through the tightly guarded channels of international intelligence. Small, seemingly unrelated discrepancies in shipping patterns, minor deviations in expected cargo movements, and an unusual number of inquiries about certain obscure European companies started to register on the radar screens of various agencies. No one had connected the dots yet, but the collective subconscious of the global intelligence community was stirring, sensing an unidentifiable tremor in the meticulously ordered world of international trade. The tensions aboard the Shearsburg A were palpable. The crew, a carefully selected mix of unwitting sailors and covert Mossad agents, maintained a facade of normalcy, their nerves frayed, but their resolve unwavering. One afternoon, a chilling report crackled over the radio. A patrolling NATO vessel conducting routine exercises was on a converging course. Panic threatened to erupt, but Ben, drawing on his decades of maritime experience, quickly devised a temporary change in the ship's course, citing a minor engine malfunction that required a slight detour for inspection. The NATO vessel, after a brief, unsettling visual confirmation, continued on its way, oblivious to the precious illicit cargo passing within a few nautical miles. The Shearsburg A was now truly at sea, a floating secret, its true purpose hidden beneath layers of deception. But the world's most powerful nations, though still blind to the whole truth, were slowly starting to pay attention, their collective gaze inching ever closer to discovery. The vast, indifferent ocean offered no hiding place from the relentless scrutiny of geopolitical adversaries, and the journey had only just begun. The Shearsburg A, having narrowly evaded the NATO patrol, now plunged deeper into the Mediterranean, the shimmering expanse of water that was simultaneously the cradle of civilization and the most heavily monitored sea in the world. Every vessel, every shipment, every communication was subject to intense scrutiny, a ceaseless ballet of invisible waves carrying secrets and suspicions across its vast surface. For David and his team, this was the ultimate test of their intricate deception. The intricate ballet of their deception unfolded with painstaking precision. False radio transmissions, meticulously crafted to mimic the chatter of a legitimate merchant vessel, were broadcast at pre-planned intervals, creating a digital ghost of the Shearsburg A's supposed journey. Rendezvous points, carefully chosen in remote, less trafficked zones, were occasionally approached and then abandoned, adding layers of plausible confusion to anyone attempting to track them. Carefully orchestrated detours, attributed to minor mechanical issues or unexpected weather, further obscured their true trajectory, each deviation a brushstroke in a masterpiece of misdirection. Rachel, the communications specialist, became the nerve center of this elaborate charade. Her fingers danced across the sophisticated interception technologies, her mind a fortress against the constant pressure. She battled tirelessly against the ever-improving capabilities of international intelligence agencies, always one step ahead, maintaining the illusion of the ship's true, innocent identity. Each successful transmission, each deflected inquiry, was a small victory against overwhelming odds, a testament to her unwavering focus and expertise. The constant threat of being unmasked hung heavy in the air, a silent predator circling their every move. David felt the growing internal conflict like a physical weight. The moral cost of this deception, the constant fear of failure, the lives of his team members, and the very future of his nation, all rested squarely on his shoulders. He would often find himself staring out at the endless horizon, the vastness mirroring the immensity of the secret he carried. Doubts, like insidious whispers, would creep into his mind. Was this worth it? Would the world ever forgive them? A critical moment arrived when a foreign intelligence agency, one known for its tenacity and advanced surveillance capabilities, began actively tracking the Shearsburg A. Their analysts, having noticed a pattern of subtle inconsistencies in the ship's reported movements and communications, suspected something was profoundly amiss. They dedicated significant resources, deploying reconnaissance aircraft and satellite surveillance, their digital tendrils reaching out to ensnare the elusive vessel. Elias, David's cynical yet profoundly wise mentor, sensed his protégé's growing despair. Through coded messages, he offered not platitudes, but stark reminders of their ultimate purpose. "Remember, David," the message read, "the survival of our people is not a negotiation. It is an imperative. The shadows you walk in today will cast a light on tomorrow." Elias's unwavering conviction, tempered by years of impossible missions, became David's anchor in the turbulent sea of his own conscience. The crew of the Shearsburg A, a disparate mix of Mossad agents trained to blend seamlessly into civilian roles and unwitting sailors genuinely believing they were on a routine journey, operated under immense pressure. The agents maintained their cover with steely resolve, their eyes constantly scanning for threats, their bodies coiled for action. The sailors, meanwhile, found themselves increasingly confused by the ship's erratic course changes and the captain's cryptic explanations, though loyalty and the promise of good pay kept their questions to a murmur. Every crew member, whether aware or oblivious, was a pawn in this high-stakes game. Then a shocking discovery reverberated through the tracking agency's command center. The sophisticated surveillance systems, which had been meticulously following the Shearsburg A for days, suddenly lost its signal. One moment, the ship was a faint blip on their radar, a consistent data stream. The next, it was gone. The vessel had vanished from their radar screens, seemingly without a trace, leaving behind only static and a profound sense of disbelief. Panic rippled through the analysts. A ship the size of the Shearsburg A, carrying a significant cargo, did not simply disappear in the middle of the Mediterranean. The implications were staggering, and the hunt for the phantom ship began in earnest. The world's intelligence agencies, still grappling with the baffling disappearance of the Shearsburg A, were unaware that their phantom ship had, in fact, executed its vanishing act with surgical precision. Under the cloak of a moonless Mediterranean night, a daring mid-sea transfer operation was unfolding, the culmination of years of meticulous planning and audacious courage. The Shearsburg A rendezvoused with an Israeli cargo ship, the Atlantic, a vessel chosen for its innocuous appearance and its captain's unwavering loyalty. The sea itself, usually a formidable adversary, became an unwitting accomplice, its vastness providing cover, its choppy waves muffling the sounds of the clandestine activity. The treacherous conditions of the open sea presented an immediate, daunting challenge. Transferring 200 tons of uranium, contained within tightly sealed barrels, from one ship to another in the dead of night was a logistical nightmare. The waves tossed both vessels, threatening to smash them together or send the precious cargo plummeting into the abyss. Floodlights, carefully positioned to avoid detection from afar, cast an eerie glow on the scene, illuminating the sweat-slicked faces of the crew. Cranes whirred, their cables groaning under the immense weight, as barrel after barrel was painstakingly lifted from the Shearsburg A's hold and lowered into the waiting belly of the Atlantic. The intense pressure to complete the transfer quickly and silently was palpable. Every second counted. A single misstep, a dropped barrel, a sudden shift in the waves, could spell disaster. A communications blackout had been meticulously timed, creating a silent bubble around the two ships, isolating them from the prying ears of the world. Rachel, despite being physically distant, was orchestrating this blackout with flawless precision, her fingers dancing across consoles, creating an electronic ghost in the machine, making the ships vanish from any potential radar or radio sweep. Ben's expertise in maritime operations proved invaluable. His years at sea, his intuitive understanding of currents and tides, allowed him to orchestrate the complex ship-to-ship transfer with a balletic grace that belied the inherent danger. He barked orders, his voice a low, urgent rumble, guiding the crane operators, ensuring the ships maintained their precarious distance, preventing a catastrophic collision. His calm demeanor was a beacon in the frantic energy of the transfer, instilling a sense of controlled urgency among the crew. David watched, a knot of emotion tightening in his chest. He saw not just barrels of yellowcake, but the future of his nation, the symbol of its survival. Each barrel hoisted was a step closer to securing Israel's existence, a tangible manifestation of their desperate struggle. The weight of the responsibility, which had been a crushing burden, now felt like a profound sense of purpose. He felt a surge of pride in his team, in their unwavering dedication, their silent sacrifice. The emotional toll on him and his team was immense, the sheer audacity of their mission etched onto their faces, a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. As the last barrel was secured in the Atlantic's hold, a collective sigh of relief, silent yet profound, swept through the crews. Just as dawn began to paint the eastern sky with hues of rose and violet, the two ships disengaged. The Atlantic, now laden with its priceless cargo, slipped away into the burgeoning light, blending seamlessly with the routine maritime traffic that would soon populate the Mediterranean. Its new course was set for Israeli waters, its true mission concealed beneath layers of false documentation and a carefully constructed cover story. Meanwhile, the Shearsburg A, now empty of its clandestine freight, remained behind. Its purpose fulfilled, it became a decoy, a ghost ship whose continued disappearance would draw the frantic attention of international intelligence agencies, diverting their gaze from the true prize. The world was now in an uproar, frantic searches for a phantom vessel intensifying across the Mediterranean. They were hunting for a shadow, while the real cargo, still vulnerable, was steadily making its way towards its true destination, its journey far from over. The global intelligence community was chasing a mirage, completely oblivious to the audacious deception that had just unfolded beneath their very noses, a testament to Mossad's unparalleled cunning. The Atlantic, now a vessel of immense strategic importance, continued its journey, a silent, unassuming ship amidst the vast expanse of the Mediterranean. Its path was carefully chosen, designed to mimic the routes of countless other cargo ships, an anonymous dot on the global shipping map. Beneath its unassuming exterior lay the core of Israel's future, a secret so profound that its discovery could ignite an international crisis. David, though no longer physically aboard, felt an invisible tether to the ship, his mind tracking its every nautical mile, every subtle shift in course. His team, meanwhile, embarked on the painstaking, meticulous process of erasing every last trace of their audacious deception. The Shearsburg A, having served its purpose as a decoy, underwent a swift and thorough sanitization. Documents were burned, equipment disassembled and disposed of, and any personnel who had been privy to the true nature of its mission were reassigned or debriefed with utmost discretion, their memories compartmentalized. The goal was to construct an impenetrable wall of plausible deniability, ensuring that should any threads of suspicion lead back to the Shearsburg A, they would unravel into a dead end. A phantom operation with no discernible origin or destination. Every communication, every financial transaction, every logistical detail related to the operation was scrutinized, cross-referenced, and then systematically dismantled, leaving no verifiable link to Israel. As the international investigation into the missing uranium intensified, a chaotic storm of speculation erupted. Intelligence agencies across Europe and beyond scrambled, bewildered by the audacity of the theft and the sheer professionalism of its execution. Suspicions flew in every direction, landing on various nations with burgeoning nuclear ambitions, but always circling back to a frustrating void of concrete evidence. No one, it seemed, could definitively point a finger, least of all at Israel, a country whose intelligence apparatus was now perceived as far too nascent to pull off such a monumental feat. The Mossad, with its intricate web of misinformation and carefully planted diversions, had successfully engineered a narrative of confusion, painting a picture of an unsolvable mystery. Back in Tel Aviv, the internal political machinations within Mossad began to stir. The success of Operation Plumbat, while celebrated in hushed tones, also presented an opportunity for rivals to exploit any perceived missteps or to claim a share of the glory. David, still in the thick of the post-operation cleanup, found himself navigating not only the external threats of discovery, but also the subtle, insidious currents of internal power struggles. Elias, ever the pragmatist, guided him through this treacherous landscape, his years of experience a shield against the political maneuvering. Amidst the relentless pressure and the constant threat of exposure, David's relationship with Rachel deepened. They had shared a burden so immense, so profoundly impactful, that it forged an unbreakable bond between them. Late nights spent poring over intelligence reports, the shared anxieties, the quiet triumphs, all contributed to a profound understanding that transcended professional camaraderie. She understood the weight he carried, the sacrifices he had made, and he, in turn, recognized the quiet strength and unwavering dedication that lay beneath her brilliant intellect. Their connection was a silent anchor in the turbulent seas of their clandestine lives. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the Atlantic reached Israeli waters. Its arrival was a spectacle of calculated secrecy, executed with the same precision that had defined the entire operation. Under the cloak of night, the ship was guided to a secluded, heavily guarded port. The precious cargo, the 200 tons of yellow cake, was swiftly and silently unloaded, disappearing into the secure confines of Israel's nascent nuclear facilities. The uranium was finally on Israeli soil, a tangible symbol of their nation's resilience and ingenuity. Yet, the true challenge now was not merely securing the material, but keeping the secret buried for decades, an impossible task that loomed large. The world's top intelligence agencies, though momentarily baffled, were far from giving up their relentless hunt for the missing nuclear material. The ghost of Operation Plumbat would continue to haunt the international stage for years to come. The immediate aftermath of Operation Plumbat saw the 200 tons of uranium safely ensconced within Israel's most secure facilities, a silent promise of future deterrence. The yellow cake, once a phantom cargo navigating treacherous seas, was now being meticulously processed, its journey from raw material to strategic asset beginning in earnest. For David and his team, the successful delivery brought a profound yet complex sense of relief. They had accomplished the impossible, securing the very foundation of their nation's nuclear program. However, this triumph was inextricably linked to an immense psychological burden. They were now the custodians of one of the greatest secrets of the 20th century, a truth so explosive it could redefine geopolitical power balances if ever revealed. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on them, a silent, constant companion. The long-term implications for Israel's nascent nuclear program were immediate and profound. With the acquisition of such a substantial amount of uranium, the path to developing a credible nuclear deterrent was significantly shortened. This clandestine procurement solidified Israel's strategic depth in a hostile region, fundamentally altering the calculus of future conflicts. It was a silent shield, forged in secrecy, intended to ensure the nation's survival against overwhelming odds. Yet the existence of this shield had to remain an absolute secret, a paradox that demanded unwavering discipline and an unyielding commitment to silence from every individual involved. Meanwhile, the international community's persistent, though ultimately fruitless, efforts to uncover the truth behind the missing uranium continued for years. Investigations were launched, reports were filed, and theories abounded, yet none ever truly pierced the elaborate veil of deception woven by Mossad. The sheer audacity of the operation, coupled with the meticulous destruction of evidence and the creation of plausible deniability, rendered every inquiry moot. The world's intelligence agencies, for all their resources and expertise, were chasing a ghost, their frustration mounting with each dead end. The official narrative, carefully crafted by the perpetrators, held firm. The uranium had simply vanished, an unsolvable maritime mystery. David's career, inevitably, was forever shaped by the experience of Operation Plumbat. He rose through the ranks of Mossad, his strategic brilliance and unshakable resolve sharpened by the crucible of the uranium transfer. Yet he remained a man forever changed, carrying the weight of his actions and the profound implications of the secret he guarded. The moral ambiguities of espionage, once a source of internal conflict, had solidified into a pragmatism born of necessity. He understood, perhaps more than anyone, the lengths to which a nation might go to ensure its very existence. As the decades passed, the secret of Operation Plumbat remained meticulously guarded. It became a whispered legend within the deepest echelons of Mossad, a testament to their ingenuity and daring but never openly acknowledged. Those who knew, those who had participated, carried their knowledge in silence. Their lives lived in the shadows of an achievement they could never publicly claim. For David and his team members, the personal toll was immense. They watched the world evolve, witnessed geopolitical shifts, and saw their nation grow stronger, all while knowing their pivotal role in that transformation could never be celebrated. They bore the burden of a shared, magnificent secret, unable to share their greatest achievement with their families, their friends, or the world. The world moved on, consumed by new crises and emerging threats, but the question of who knew and how was it kept secret for so long occasionally resurfaced in hushed academic circles or among dedicated historians. These fleeting moments of inquiry, however, were always met with official denials and a lack of concrete evidence, further cementing the mystery. The lingering questions, like faint echoes from a distant past, merely set the stage for the inevitable, dramatic unveiling of the truth, a truth that would finally bring the legendary operation into the glaring light of history. The passage of time, an indifferent sculptor, gradually chipped away at the layers of secrecy, not through a sudden revelation, but through the slow, inexorable march of history itself. Decades after the Shearsburg A had vanished into the Mediterranean mist, the world began to change. Cold War tensions thawed, archives began to open, and the rigid walls of classified information started to show cracks. It was not a grand exposé, but rather a painstaking process of historical reconstruction, fueled by the eventual declassification of certain peripheral documents that, on their own, meant little, but when pieced together, began to hint at a larger untold story. Journalistic investigations, driven by persistent curiosity rather than direct evidence, started to unearth anomalies. Academic researchers, sifting through declassified naval logs and obscure maritime insurance claims, noticed discrepancies. These fragments, initially dismissed as historical footnotes or administrative errors, slowly began to coalesce. A former intelligence analyst, now retired and less bound by oaths of silence, might offer an anonymous tip, a cryptic reference to a ghost ship or a missing cargo. Each tiny piece, like shards of a broken mosaic, contributed to a growing, albeit still incomplete picture. The narrative thread of the missing uranium, once a dead end, began to reappear, woven into the fabric of broader geopolitical studies of the Cold War and Israel's rise as a regional power. David, now an elderly man, his once sharp features softened by age, watched these developments from afar. He lived a quiet life, his days filled with the simple routines of retirement, Yet his mind remained a vast archive of secrets. The moral complexities of his past, the ethical tightropes he had walked, had long since found their peace within him. He no longer grappled with the what-ifs or the should-haves. Instead, he held a profound conviction in the ultimate justification of his actions. The survival of his nation, a beacon of hope against a sea of historical persecution, had been his driving force, and he believed, with every fiber of his being, that Operation Plumbat had been a crucial, if morally ambiguous, cornerstone of that survival. He had seen his country flourish, its deterrence capability a silent guardian, and in that he found his closure. As the scattered pieces of evidence slowly accumulated, fueled by persistent investigative journalism and meticulous historical research, the full scope of Operation Plumbat began to emerge. It was not a single dramatic reveal, but a gradual dawning, a slow peeling back of the layers of deception. First, the vague rumors, then the compelling circumstantial evidence, and finally, the undeniable connections that laid bare the audacious truth. The world reacted with a mixture of awe, disbelief, and renewed geopolitical analysis. Historians scrambled to rewrite chapters, intelligence analysts revisited old files, and the public grappled with the sheer audacity of a plot that had remained hidden for half a century. The legacy of Operation Plumbat, once confined to the hushed whispers of Mossad's inner sanctum, now stood revealed as a testament to daring espionage, national desperation, and the extraordinary lengths nations would go to ensure their survival. It became a legendary tale, studied in intelligence academies, debated in academic circles, and marveled at by the public. For David, the unveiling brought a bittersweet sense of closure. His life's most profound secret, the weight of which he had carried for decades, was finally out in the open. It was no longer his burden alone, but a shared piece of history. The world now knew how Mossad had orchestrated the largest transfer of uranium in history, and how, against all odds, it had kept the world oblivious for 50 years, solidifying the operation's legendary, almost mythical status in the annals of covert warfare. The ghost ship had finally found its true harbor in the pages of history,